look at the red files on my desk, hearing the phone ring. And I literally got to a point, is this what I actually want?
Wow.
But again, is it worth it? What is your what's your goal? What do you want from life? You know, life isn't just about money.
No.
Interestingly, law did not even cross my mind.
Really?
So when I was at college doing A-levels, law was not even something that I would even considering. To go through it and then come through the other end and to be successful. And I honestly didn't know the full journey. I literally just took the steps as they came to me. Natural break in my career, and I thought, you know, this is the time. This is the time now. So it's either continue where I'm at or literally just say, okay, now's the time.
Yes, guys, welcome to another episode of Let Inspiration Take Over podcast. Boy, we are going, we are flowing. I'm so excited for this particular interview. I have a very special guest in the studio today. As you will have noticed, it's a bit new. It's a bit vibrant as well. We've got some new stands just for a little bit of freedom. Got myself a little iPad as well, just so I have the notes when I'm speaking to the guest. So the guest I've got today, is an amazing lady. I've spoken to her. She's told me a little bit about her story and the work that she does today. Her name is Sanchia Miller. She is a former lawyer turned property manager, helping entrepreneurs to get into the property business and to scale as well. Sanchia has over 7 years experience in the world of property and is a co-founder of a thriving property management company, transforming properties from bland to beautiful, creating profitability and cash flow assets. You know, I'm reading. This is the magic of the iPad. I'm not a very good reader, guys, so forgive me. But Sanchia, welcome to the LiT Studios. Feel at home today. And welcome. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself just before we dive into the conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for reading out.
I know, literally reading out, right?
No, but thank you.
I missed this what?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for
most welcome.
Asking me to come here. And I think you said it quite well. Yes, former lawyer turned property manager, and assisting people to do the same for those who are interested in property. I'm very passionate about that, and also turning empty properties into cash flowing assets. Absolutely.
And I think you've done really well, especially with the way you got started. I remember when I was speaking to you, I was asking, it's like, to get into property takes a lot of money, doesn't it? Like that's the mentality I've had anyway, to say that for you to get into that kind of business, you need some money, whether it's a deposit to put down, whether it's money to actually buy out. So for me personally, it's something that I found daunting. I'm like, maybe I might need to save for 3 years and that sort of thing to be able to get into it. But according to yourself, that's not necessarily the case, isn't it? Especially your path into it is a bit different. If you could tell us a little bit about that, especially the part where you don't necessarily need a lot of money.
Yes, certainly. So before I started my property business, my initial understanding in terms of how to get into property was save for a deposit, as you've just said, 30k, 50k, whatever that is. Buy a house. If it needs a bit of work doing to it, do it up. Rent it out. Use the rental income to then save for another deposit.
Yes.
And then buy another property and repeat the cycle. Save for a deposit, buy another property.
Yes.
So that was my understanding. And so that first hurdle of, okay, I'm earning a salary, but I need to save 30, 50k for a deposit.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yes.
That's where a lot of people think, oh, this is taking me forever. I'm 10 years into this and I've still not got the deposit for a property.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so for me now, I started looking at other routes into property management. Other ways that you can make money through property. And that was controlling assets as opposed to buying assets. And so when it comes to property management, you're not purchasing the properties because the landlord owns the property. You're simply controlling that asset and earning a profit from it. So you're profiting from property without purchasing.
So yes, getting back into it, Sanchia, What I wanted to ask you, actually, before we continue, was to just dig deep a little bit into yourself, as a person, before we jump into the business and everything that you do, which I know is absolutely amazing. What I believe myself is that for every person, obviously, there's something that drives them, and most times that comes from where they started from, your formative years and things like that, be it upbringing or in school. There might have been some things that happened there that perhaps when you look back on now might remind you to be like, that's why you're in the business that you're in and that sort of thing, or perhaps you're becoming the person that you are now, and it's partly because of your upbringing, that sort of thing. So perhaps if you could talk us through a little bit about your formative years and that sort of thing, upbringing, I'd love to hear about that.
Yes. So I come from quite a big family, second oldest. And I guess in growing up, it was great. Growing up was great. Loving the siblings, etc. And
Brilliant.
Rivalry. I think that's probably where it started out.
Can tell you some stories about that.
I guess that's where, you learn who you are in a pack, basically.
Yeah.
In a good way. But it's I guess that's probably where, you kind of figure out who you are,
yes.
And for me, I probably was more of the more serious of the siblings, like very on it, very goal driven.
Yeah.
If I wanted something, I'd go out and get it, essentially. So yeah, I guess, growing up in that environment, it has in some way formed me as to who I am today.
No, absolutely. What about your schooling life? Do you remember anything about that in school? Especially like perhaps primary school and that sort of thing, teachers. Do you have any teachers that had like any sort of impact on yourself?
I can't necessarily think of a specific teacher, but generally in terms of, primary school, secondary school, I had a great education. I loved school. I loved the teachers loved me. Why? Because I was hardworking.
Okay.
But at the same time, I played hard as well, So yeah, school years was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it right up until university as well.
Yes. No, that's absolutely brilliant. It's interesting to say that you were on the ball and a serious person. I'm a second born and I was the opposite. To be honest.
Right.
Yeah. I'm serious and on the ball now. But when I was younger, I just felt that perhaps I didn't need to, because obviously I had my older brother who would be like the pressure on him because he's the older brother. You got my younger sister who's the last born. So it's kind of like I found myself having what people refer to like second born syndrome. Do you get what I mean? Where it's like seeking for attention because you're just I was right in the middle because it's just three of us, right? So the first born gets the attention because they're first, and the last gets the attention because they're the youngest and they're the last and that sort of thing. So I would do certain things to kind of crave and seek that attention from my parents and that sort of thing. But I found that I discovered my potential later on. There were times like when I was younger where I didn't believe in myself, for one reason or the other. And as you say, sometimes it's to do with growing up and just having a sense of not being appreciated, and perhaps it was misguided at times. And then as I got older and as I had to do things by myself, I realized starting to live my full potential, to be like, you know what, some of those things that you believe in, I like believing that, I'm in the middle. There's a saying sometimes in African culture, say, if you're in the middle, then you are going to be craving and seeking attention. So I feel like sometimes that's something that I might have carried on in a misguided way, but I'm glad, to be where I am now. But I remember there's something that you said about, when you were in school, you were into competition and that sort of thing. You performed in track. If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I loved sports. I actually wanted to not necessarily be an athlete, but I wanted to be involved in track, 100 meters relay. That's what I used to have a passion for.
Brilliant.
Whilst at school. And again, that just instilled that competitive nature within me. It was something that I was good at, was naturally gifted at.
Yeah.
And so that's something I wanted to pursue, at that young age, secondary school, teenager. And so yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
No, absolutely. Brilliant. Do you find that some of the traits that were exhibited at that time, do you see that in yourself now, as a business lady and everything that you're pursuing? Do you find that they've come back and that sort of thing? Or
yeah, so you have to, of course, when you're training, you have to be on it again. You've got to be serious about it. You've got to have a passion for it. And I think, translating that into business. And again, that competition, the drive that you need, the desire to get up and go. So that's definitely a quality which I've kept.
Brilliant.
And been able to hone as a businesswoman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with ourselves in African culture, I'll be going into your education very soon. But before I jump into that, I come from a culture where the parents normally will push the kids and they'll tell you what they want you to do. Sometimes they won't care what your aspirations are, your ambitions.
You're like,
want to be
what's
an
aspirations?
Artist, right? They don't care what you want. You want to be a musician? What? You might no, that's not going to happen, right? You're either going to be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Funny enough, you did law, right? And most of our parents that do that, and it comes from a place where they feel that by doing that, it will help you in life because you go in a craft that's guaranteed success and that sort of thing. Do you find, obviously, I know you come from a black background, Afro-Caribbean background, where your parents, those sort of people where they pushed you into a specific career to go into, or what was that approach?
Not at all. Both my parents are quite relaxed.
Okay.
So yeah, university wasn't really pushed on me at all. A specific career path wasn't pushed on me at all.
Right.
It was, I guess they just saw it within me that, I like to study, I like to progress, I like education. I'm sure she'll go off and do something good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there wasn't that pressure of be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer, anything else, forget about it. So yeah, it was good that I had that freedom and that liberality to actually be what I wanted to be. So I'm sure if I wanted to be an athlete, for example, or something else, they would have backed that and been okay with it.
Absolutely. I mean, where do you find that drive came from? Because it's interesting to say that you're saying your parents had a relaxed approach and you're so driven. I've spoken to you. I've seen, I've perused your Instagram. I've seen the chat that you did the other time where you were talking about your background and where you've come from in passion. I'm like, wow, okay. Can see you going places. So it's like, so I wonder to say, where did that come from?
Good question.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I actually don't know where this drive and passion comes from, because I'm the complete opposite to my parents. I'm the complete opposite to my siblings.
Yeah.
We share similar qualities, but in terms of the get up and go and, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go out there and do it. I honestly don't know where that comes from. So I guess I should spend some time looking at where the origin of that comes from, because that probably helped me even more.
To be where you are.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you find that the relaxed approach perhaps is what helped you to be driven? Because sometimes you find that there are people that take the opposite approach. You can derail someone, and some people will be resentful of their parents. Like I know somebody was telling me where they did what their parents wanted them to do. They went to university, they did a master's, but after they finished, they didn't do anything with the course yet, and they ended up resenting their parents. So perhaps the relaxed approach is
maybe that worked.
Is the way to go, right? But with that said, as I said, I do want to jump into your education as well. So you studied law. Law is one of the most difficult subjects to study, and I tell you, I considered it. I could say, I considered it. It's considering law journalism, but I settled for business, right? Because it's a lot of reading for both, especially law. I was being told it's a lot of reading, and you need a certain capacity. So I was like, you know what, that's all right. I'm gonna do it. But so for starters, I would like to hear about it, but also just what made you go for law, and where did that belief again come from to say that that's something that you could do?
Interestingly, law did not even cross my mind. Really? So when I was at college doing A-levels, law was not even something that I was even considering.
Okay.
So I was actually doing, amongst some of my A-levels, sociology.
Brilliant.
And I was actually really good, and I was getting A's, and I really enjoyed it, and I was excelling. And so I told my sociology teacher, I said, look, I want to do sociology at university.
Okay.
And I'll never forget it. She looked at me, she said, why do you want to do that?
Right.
And I'm thinking, right, okay.
Where's that gonna go?
I'm thinking I'm getting good grades, and you're a sociology teacher, and I want to follow in your steps. And she's like, no, why do you want to do that? What are you going to do?
Right.
Be a sociologist, teach sociology? And I thought, okay, I've not looked that far. I'm at college.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. And she said, do you know what? Go off and do law. Go and do law.
So she's the one that encouraged it.
She literally said, go and do law.
Wow.
And I said, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I went off and I did my 3-year law degree.
Yeah.
Law school and LPC and, training contract, etc. And that's literally where it came from.
Is it that she saw the potential for you to be able to to carry the subject, or?
I can imagine. So
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Right, okay.
I can imagine because she was always, you you get those teachers that are always pleased with anything you did, they'll be pleased because you put in the effort.
Because you're, and you're always trying and that sort of thing. Yeah.
So she was one of those teachers
brilliant.
that really, she really pushed me in the sense of, you're doing great, very encouraging. So she must have seen some potential, you could go and study law. And so I said, okay.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. I know you glossed over, you're saying, oh, it was brilliant 3 years. Hold on, I'm going to take it back a little bit. Let's not. Yeah. So what was your experience, as a lawyer, especially, in fact, what I would like to hear is what was your perception of what it would be like, and what was it actually like, the experience of studying, studying law and going into law as well?
I'll take you right back to the decision of actually deciding to do law.
There you go. Yeah.
So I actually didn't know much about it. Of course, you read the description of what these courses, degrees include, but you don't actually know until you actually get onto it and do it. But if I'm honest, when I think about law as a degree, there's no other degree that I would want to have done. And I'm very pleased that I listened to the teacher and then I went off and I did it.
Yeah.
But in terms of what to expect, I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
I literally just applied myself for the 3 years straight.
Okay.
Did what they told me to do and came out with a decent degree. So I didn't really know what to expect. And in terms of the actual whole process to then, from going from a student to being a lawyer, again, I didn't really know how that worked
Where's
either.
Gonna go? So you're going with God's grace.
Literally. So when I got to like my second year, 2.5 years into my degree, and I heard teachers and other students saying, now you need to start applying for law school and all those things. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? I've just done 3 years. Like, what do you have to go to law?
What have I got here?
So then you have to go and do a year of law school.
Yeah.
So I did the LPC and then when you get onto the LPC and you're coming towards the end of that, it's like, okay, now you have to apply for a training contract. I'm thinking, what's a training contract?
Right.
So that's the 2 years where you train to then become a lawyer. So what's that? 6 years or so. To go through it and then come through the other end and to be successful. And I honestly didn't know the full journey. I literally just took the steps as they came to me.
Was it a lot of reading, as they say? They say you have to read mountains of books and that kind of thing, the assignments and whatnot.
Definitely. And literally, you'll be in a lecture or in a seminar and they will say, oh, yeah, so read this case law for next session. Bearing in mind, next session's tomorrow and the case law is probably 64 pages. So it was as if you just had to do it, they had this expectation that if you want to be a lawyer, you're gonna have to be able to read.
There you go.
And be able to read quickly and understand quickly.
You need to know what you're talking about. Yeah,
definitely. So there is a lot of reading. So for anyone that's thinking of doing law,
don't do it. No, I'm kidding. Be a reader, right? Learn how to read and get into it. Yeah. What about the actual practice of law? I'd like to hear about that a little bit. What was that like for you as a lawyer? Did you enjoy it? Not when I say enjoy it, I don't mean like it's fun, but was it what you expected and that sort of thing? Is it what was that like basically?
Interesting in the sense of studying law and practicing as a lawyer are two
different things.
And probably that's a lot.
I thought as much.
And probably for most professions as well, going from theory to practical. So two completely different things. And did I enjoy it? Yes, I enjoyed advising clients. I enjoyed solving problems and getting answers, getting solutions. That part I enjoyed. The rest of it, in terms of the hours, the commitment, in terms of the targets, stress,
Can imagine
that side of things. Overall, I was just like, you know what? I don't really want this.
Right.
So if I could strip it all back and literally just advise clients, and have everyone else do the work and hit the targets for me, then it would be great.
Do that, yeah.
But overall, as a whole package, it's not a job, it's not a profession. It really is a lifestyle.
There you go.
And so you have to make a decision. Do I actually want? To do this? Because your life has to fit around it, as opposed to the profession fitting around your life.
I mean, that point that you've made there is so poignant, because there are a lot of people that are in career paths right now that are in jobs where they follow the money, right? It's stress, is hell, but they don't consider that. They think, well, money over everything. And I think the opposite. In anything that I'm going to do, of course I want to make some money. Come on. Right? Of course I want to do what I will work, but it has to fit in with what I do. So as you've noticed, I'm a family man. Got a young daughter, I've got a son, now I've got a full wife, a whole wife, right? Which means it means that how I want to tailor my life is with whatever I do, it ties in somehow with my people, and then for them to get my time, because I feel like it's not enough for me to just provide, just to provide everything they need, but they also need me. And I do feel that there are certain crafts that will take you away, from your people. Yes, you're getting good money, yes, you're providing a roof over the head, but is it worth it?
Exactly.
Right? Which is another thing that I was going to ask you to say. What would you say to the people that will say that, well, the money is really good and they don't mind, how hell it is and that sort of thing is worth the money? For starters, is it worth the money? And is the money good in law?
Yeah, I mean, there's money to be made. Yes, right? There is. But again, is it worth it? What is your what's your goal? What do you want from life? Life isn't just about money. No. It's a glamorous profession, Oh, yes, I'm a lawyer. But what does it actually take? That's
one of the things.
What sacrifices are you making?
Yes.
And even through studying and then going on to practice, there were a lot of sacrifices that I made. But I was thinking, is this something I want to continue going on until, my 40s, retirement? And the answer to that question was no. And so for me, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth trading my time, trading my life for the money that I was receiving. And you've got to remember as well, there's a glass ceiling.
Absolutely.
There's a corporate glass ceiling.
Right.
And, regardless of how much money you're making, it's subjective as to how good you think the money is.
Right.
But there is always a cap. In any profession, usually there's a cap. And I thought, you know what? I can smash this cap. I can smash this corporate ceiling. And
there you go.
So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely brilliant, and I love it. We'll be jumping into what you're doing now, which is property management. But as I'm thinking, as you're talking, questions are popping into my head, right? Our inspiration's taking over right now. I would like to know the point when you decided that this is not it for me, because as I said, law sounds glamorous. Like, I know if it's something that I would have done, I would be there just, it's, even if it's hell, I'll be presenting, the car and corporate, and some people, that's what they would do. I'm a lawyer, and you'll be saying it, and people will look at you. Again, the culture I come from, people will really look at you like, oh wow, that's status, you're a lawyer. They don't care if it's stress. They don't care if it's slowly killing you. They're not bothered about that. They just care the fact that you're doing it. And because if you're a lawyer, it means money. If it's money, it means stability. It means, you can provide for your family, you can buy all this. They don't want to hear any other aspect, right? So to leave that, I can imagine that's a huge decision to make by someone, especially you, the investor. As you said, you spend all those years. Did you say 6 years?
About 6 years, yes.
Training, that's money, that is time. So for somebody to even just take that decision to not to move on, it's to move on, but to jump into something else, that's a big decision. So what I would like to hear, perhaps for our listeners and our viewers, is what was your mindset at that time? What made you make that decision? What was the thing that made you decide to say, do you know what, I'm going to leave this and go into something else?
I used to walk into the office every morning and sit at my desk, look at the red files on my desk, hearing the phone ring. And I literally got to a point, is this what I actually want?
Wow.
And a lot of people ask themselves that question.
Yeah.
Yet don't take action.
No.
But being the person that I am, I was just like, nah, this isn't what I want. And I'm at a stage in my profession, in my life, where if I'm ever going to take a leap, if I'm ever going to take the jump, it's now.
There you go.
And so yes. So for me, it was just a knowing of what I didn't want.
Right.
Now, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted per se.
Right. Okay.
But I knew what I didn't want.
Okay.
And a lot of the times that's the starting point for a lot of people. Knowing what you don't want. And then the rest will sort of figure itself out, you know?
Absolutely. So did you leave before you jumped into property management?
No.
Right.
No.
Okay.
So I started educating myself in property whilst I was training, actually. I hadn't yet even qualified at that point.
Okay.
But I started attending webinars and seminars and reading books and all that stuff just so I can get clued up on property. So it wasn't until, you know, I had qualified, practiced for a bit, and then I thought there was a natural break in my career, and I thought, you know, this is the time. This is the time now. So it's either continue where I'm at or literally just say, okay, now's the time.
Let's do it. But you know what I love about what you said is you were doing something about it. So you knew that that's not where you wanted to be, and then you started to practice and to train in in property management. That's what I would say for anyone in a position where you want to transition. Get started where you are. Right? It's the same as I say to you. Whilst I'm doing this, you know, the podcast and building the platform and building the brand as LiT, I'm working full time in another job. You know. It's good for now, but in the background, I'm working and building something else. And I would say that is the best way to transition. It's not good being in the same place and complaining about how you don't like that place, yet you're not doing anything about it. Also, it's not good for you to just leave that place whilst you don't have a plan B, unless maybe you've got like a gang of savings. Then perhaps that might work out best for you. But I was going to say, I really love that particular point. But jumping straight into the property management side of things, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that in terms of the early days when you started now, right? So you've left law, you've decided that this is something that you're going to do full time. What was that transition like, and what were the early stages like for you, jumping into going from one thing into a completely new thing that I'm assuming you didn't have any clue or any idea what you were getting yourself into?
Not at all. So as I mentioned, I was still training to be a lawyer, started educating myself, getting out there, getting into circles, property circles, rubbing shoulders with people who were doing what I wanted to do successfully. And then I invested quite heavily, a lot of money into a course, a training program. And that was really the catalyst to get me started and get me going in property, because I knew that money's left my account now, a substantial chunk. Therefore, I'm going to have to make something work and something's going to have to come back to me, you know? So that was how I essentially got started. When it comes to property, there are so many property strategies out there. There's HMOs, which is houses of multiple occupancy. There's buy-to-lets, there's purchasing, there's developments. There's so many options when it comes to property management. And I spent, I would say, the first year or so trying to buy property.
Right.
So as I mentioned before, in order to buy, you need to make sure
money.
You've got a deposit.
You need a deposit.
Exactly. So although I had savings, I didn't have X amount of money to buy a property, because my plan was to buy a property, convert it to HMOs. So a HMO is, you know, buy it, convert it into a shared house, multiple occupancy, and then take the cash flow from there. A year down the line, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I haven't got the deposit. I haven't bought a house. What am I doing? You know, I've made a decision to leave law, not yet left, made a decision to leave. I've invested X amount of thousands into this course. I've wasted a year essentially. Oh God,
my savings are gone. I'm no longer in the crop. What am I doing? Yeah, God.
Exactly. And so you come to that point like, okay, it's not working. Let's look at what needs to work. What am I going to have to do in order to see some progress? Make it work. And so that's why I started looking at property management. So that's what I specialize in now, property management. So that's your controlling assets as opposed to purchasing assets. So that asset being property. And so you know, it was a matter then of connecting with landlords who own properties, and then offering property management services and being paid for that.
There you go.
So essentially operating, you know, as a lettings agent. But being more bespoke and specialized. So that's the route I went down. And since then it's just been
Go forward.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you, because obviously the first time that we spoke, I confused it for buy to let. So the thing that you said you didn't do is what I thought you did.
Yeah.
Right. And then you were like, no, it's different. Perhaps different. For our listeners and our viewers, I know some people will be curious. Are you all right to explain to us the difference between, I know you've touched on it briefly, but between buy to let and, property management, what you actually do.
HMOs, yeah.
HMOs,
so essentially buy to let, it's just essentially where you would buy a house. Let's say, just to keep numbers simple, let's say it's a 5-bed house.
Yes.
And you would rent that out to a family. So that's just a single family would live in that property.
Okay.
Whereas with a HMO now, let's take the same 5-bed house, but instead of renting it out to a single family, you would then rent it out to 5 individual people.
Right.
So you've got 5 individual tenancies rather than one tenancy.
Okay, yeah.
So when it comes to property management, the standard practice is that you take a percentage of the gross rents that you're getting from the property.
Okay.
So let's say you've got the 5-bed house and you've renting it out, I don't know, let's say for £1,000.
Yes.
So your gross rent at 10% would be £100 management fee for that property. But let's say you've got the same 5-bed house and you've let it out to 5 individual people and your gross rent's, I don't know, £3,000. So you'd be taking £300 management fee.
Right.
So essentially, that's just to keep figures very simple, hopefully.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it just shows you that if you can use the same house but change the strategy, that you can substantially increase your profit on those properties.
No, absolutely brilliant. I mean, it makes it feel more doable, to be honest with you. I'm sure our viewers and listeners will be getting an education from yourself. Another question that I wanted to jump into, as with anything, I'm sure there are tough times and there'll be challenges that you face. It all sounds brilliant, right? But I'm sure, as with anything, obviously, that's worth doing. There will be some bits that, what are some of the challenges that you have faced, in the business that you're currently in? Moment.
Going from scratch, like literally going from being a lawyer to then stepping into, the whole world of property. I didn't know anything about property.
Yeah.
And so having to learn everything literally from scratch, creating networks and circles from scratch.
Right. And
then when you actually start building, when you actually start, growing your business, it's then, okay, it's just me, I did start out my business with a business partner, but literally you're doing everything. You're doing everything.
That is it.
One-man band.
Literally.
And you can relate being a one-man band, but no, you're literally doing everything.
Yeah.
From, connecting with landlords to offer your property management services, to the accounts in the business, to cleaning rooms just before a tenant moves in, literally.
Promotion. Everything,
marketing. So that was one of the challenges when starting out in business. However, it's the bedrock of a solid business, because now I know every aspect of my business.
There you go.
A lot of the things now are outsourced, thankfully. But yet I know how to do it.
Absolutely.
And so that's definitely one of the challenges. But and also just dodging sharks, dodging those sharks who are out there in the property field, out there trying to...
Tell us a little bit about them. Some interesting anecdotes.
Well, you meet some people, whose intentions aren't necessarily...
It's to cheat people. I know sometimes they'll say, like, there used to be a thing that probably might have changed now, where people would take people's deposits and things like that. Like sometimes I didn't really used to trust, lettings agents and things like that, because I just thought there were people that will steal your deposit one way or the other,
Well, there's always those, what are they called? Landlords that basically just don't do things by the book. You always find those. But I was thinking more of the just business in general, when you're out there and you're trying to grow your business. And one of the things with
limited resources and somebody's taking away your money.
Exactly. So, with marketing, we know social media is, it's just the way forward. And so you want to grow your platforms as a growing business, and you want to excel. And so, we engage with a marketing expert and, who would help us with social media, etc. Ended up scamming us, out of our money. And that was an interesting story.
Social media expert, is it?
Social media expert.
Please tell us a little bit about that story, Sanchia. We got time.
Well, that, you know, someone that could help out with marketing and growing your following and, you know, visibility. And that's what any growing business wants. It wants visibility.
What was the sales pitch, basically, that drove you into it? Like,
gosh, it was a couple of years now, but essentially just standing out as the niche in your field and being, you know, being able to differentiate yourself from the crowd, etc. So that was what I wanted, you know, as a startup business. But yeah, turned out, you know, we paid the money. Nothing came of it. I'm kind of dumbing down the story a little bit because,
like, what is the meat? Give us the meat.
No, honestly. But no, to the point where literally, you know, the Facebook posts were done by this individual and just things that just weren't right, you know? Trying to discredit you, discredit what you do.
Because you're trying to,
Yeah, so you're calling them out, basically, saying, you know what, I've paid for the service.
Where is the service?
This isn't what I've received. And so people will take advantage of you. And as a just out there in the property game, in the new circles, you've just got to figure out who's legit, who's not, and just figure your way through.
Absolutely. As with anything, you're absolutely right on that one. And that happens. I'll put it to cost of doing business because there've been times when I've bought things that are very expensive and it's worked out that they're not functional the way I want them to function. Like we might have learned today. We're not going to talk about that story. Technical issues and things like that. Like I go out of my way as well sometimes to spend on things, but it's not always that they do what they're supposed to do. So I think, I'll just put that to cost of business. You learn from that. And then that should teach your process of how you do things, you know, moving forward.
Definitely.
I love the point that you made about the beauty of being a one-man band is you want to know every single aspect of your business. Because there will be times when that person that does something for you is not able to do it. You have to carry it yourself. Even if you're going to hire people, whether it's freelancers or contractors, the only way you can implement process is to know how things work because it will be based on you, the ethos and the culture of what you do. Only you can build that. So if you're today I was sweeping, I sweep, I light, you know, and it's like now I'm learning, it's like, oh, it's quite a bit. But then when I'm now implementing this on a larger scale, I know what it takes. I know what it needs. Even when things go wrong, the way I think about it is how to get it right next time. Okay, that went wrong. What do I do? Okay, fail safes as well, backups, right? Even in the job that I do now, I learned as I've done the job, it's like you need certain backups. If your cable breaks, I've got 5 cables spare. If this, I've learned, okay, now I need to add on. So it is so integral, so imperative to know your business from bottom up, not just for the sake of, as we said, implementation, but also, as we said, there comes a time where you will need to go back to being, you know, the sweeper or being, you know, the cleaner, that sort of thing.
But we hope not.
I know, right? Of your own business, of course. Another thing, a question that popped into my head again, inspiration's taking over once more. Was there ever a time where you felt like just packing it in, right? Where you feel like, well, is this a mistake? And you're down and you're thinking, boy, you know what? I just want to give up.
Short answer to that question, no.
Oh, you're different, Sanchia.
That doesn't mean to say that there hasn't been difficult and challenging times.
You still didn't feel like giving up?
No.
Oh, you're driven.
And that's simply because I had made a decision. I had made a decision. I am leaving law. I'm leaving my profession. And I am going to make something work.
There you go.
And so, there has been times where it's been very difficult. There's been tears along the way, late nights, early mornings. There's been difficult conversations to have. You know, there has been very hard roads to travel on this entrepreneurial journey. However, have I ever thought I'm going to quit? Have I ever thought, why the heck am I doing this? No, I haven't.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm very blessed in the sense that I've been able to stay focused.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean I haven't cried a few nights.
I know, right? I was going to say, I'll rephrase it. What's been one of your most trying times then during this journey, especially during this entrepreneurship journey?
Most trying. I would just say
just one. Not all of them.
Just one. It is emotionally draining at times.
Right.
It really can take every fiber of your body to get your business off the ground, to get this idea from a simple concept to reality.
Okay.
So yeah, that's been something which really has been definitely a challenging part.
Yeah.
But again, when you look back and you're looking back in hindsight, and you're thinking, wow, okay, I've done it.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I was going to say, yeah, most people, or myself included, I don't know, actually might be similar to you. I don't think there's ever been a time where I thought, well, I'm going to give up. But there have been times where it's really, really challenging.
Yeah.
And it's really trying and you're thinking, oh God, was this the right decision? And that sort of thing. But yeah, I know you also do mentorship and coaching. So that's something that I wanted to jump into as well from two aspects. What inspired you to teach? Because very few people, most people do, and they enjoy what they make and they just live life. Very few people want to give back in that manner. So what inspired you to do it? And perhaps if you can tell us a little bit about the work that you do with mentorship.
In terms of starting out, as a coach, as a mentor, I think it was during the lockdown period, actually. A lot of people were reaching out. I'm sure it was a stage where people were looking at different alternatives to their jobs, etc. They're now at home thinking, what am I doing with my life? And so I found that there was a lot of people that reached out to me, just interested in what I do. And I'll be replying to these people. Then I realized, gosh, it's taken a lot of time to go back to these people one by one. And so I, thought, right, let me do this on a bigger scale. Let me see how I can help people on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
And so, created my course, the workshop, and essentially just helping people who are interested in property management, who want that second income, to then go out and be able to do it. So literally the A to Z of property management, specifically looking at HMOs. What is a HMO? How do they operate? How do you make money from it? How do you set up your business? How do you find properties? How do you profit from them? How do you manage them? So literally just showing them the whole spectrum of property management. And I guess the reason why I decided to do it is because when I started out, I wanted help. I didn't necessarily know. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do at the time, but I was reaching out to a lot of people. I'm very thankful that people listened to me and took the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I definitely felt that there was a need. People needed help, and so I was in a position to give it.
There you go. And how's that journey been? In terms of mentorship, have you found that people have taken to it and that sort of thing, or?
Yeah, definitely. People. What it is, it's not necessarily just property. Property is what I specialize in. However, it's just a vehicle.
Okay.
It's about what can that bring? What can a second income stream bring to you? What can you do with that? Who's the person that you're going to become, as you start out and embark on your own business?
Yeah.
So it's more of people want freedom. People want financial freedom. People want the ability of flexibility, So that's the reason why they approach me.
Yeah.
And of course, because I use property as that vehicle, that's why they're like, okay, this has worked for you. Potentially this could work for me.
For me as well. Yeah, brilliant. No, I think you are doing God's work, I will say. The fact that you are doing that giving back, especially with everything that you've been through and that sort of thing. So that's a noble thing for you to do. And I'm sure, obviously, I'll put some links for people to be able to reach out for those that want to go into property management and what you do and that sort of thing. So that's absolutely brilliant. Speaking of God's work, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your faith as well, because obviously I'm a Christian, myself, Pentecostal. I know you're a Christian as well. Do you feel that has played a role, in your success journey, especially as it pertains to entrepreneurship, and that sort of thing? Or rather, what role would you say that's played,
It's the foundation.
Right.
Literally, it is the foundation, because the entrepreneurial journey, life itself is hard.
Absolutely.
It is hard. It can be hard at times. And so it literally is, I would say, my faith that has gotten me through.
Yeah.
My faith in God, my faith in Jesus Christ. That's what has really been my bedrock.
Okay.
And, going through the entrepreneurial journey, literally, you're like this.
Yes.
with opportunities, with emotions, with everything. You're up and down,
Absolutely.
but being able to stay constant, knowing who you are,
Yes.
that is something that has definitely 100% played a massive role in my success in business.
Absolutely. So you're saying, is it something that grounds you, basically,
yeah.
your spirituality and that sort of thing?
Yep. Staying grounded, stay humble.
Yeah.
You know, not forgetting where you came from, and just knowing, you know, who you are, but also where you want to be and what you're striving to achieve.
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, finally, we'll be coming to, you know, the end of the conversation. But I want to ask you, to a young person out there who's like a similar yourself, Sanchia, who's trying to figure it out in the hustle and bustle, what words of wisdom would you give to them in terms of, you know, just how to approach life and perhaps how they can get to the level where you are yourself?
What I would say is go for it. You know, sounds a bit cliche, but if you're young, you know, teenager, or, you know, your 20s, or, you know, you've got, you know, your whole life ahead of you, you know, and you don't necessarily have to know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I can say that with confidence is because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I left law. Yeah. However, I knew what I knew what I didn't want, and that was to stay chained to a desk as a lawyer.
There you go.
And so what advice,
you know?
yeah. And so what advice I'd give is just have a think about what it is that you are enjoying right now in life. What is it that you actually want to achieve? Because property may be the vehicle that helps you to do that. It may be something else. It may be a profession. Whatever it is, just know that it's out there for you to attain. But you've got to take action, though. You've got to take action. And whatever it is that you want to do, you've got to move towards it. It's not just going to fall on your lap.
Absolutely. I agree. Wow. So many insightful gems. I've just remembered, I was also going to ask you this, to say, obviously, you're driven, you're doing well, you've got this tenacity and ambition about you, which is like, it's new to me. I'm saying it, I was like, wow, it actually exists. What else are you passionate about outside, you know, the work and the entrepreneurship and the business? Are there other things that you're passionate about in life in general? Generally,
yeah. I love family. I love spending time with family. I think most people do, but I like to create memories. I like to keep things simple as well, you know?
There you go.
Just spending time with family is something I'm passionate about. I like to learn, you know? You know, I know we're saying outside of business, but I like to see progress. I like to feel like I'm progressing, you know?
Something's happening.
So something's happening. Like, you very rarely see me just sitting. I'm either just sitting reading a book or doing something. You know? So I'm passionate about creating as well.
Oh, there you go.
I like to create something from nothing, you know, and I think that's part of as well, you know, the property refurbishments that I do, you know, taking a property from literally an empty shell, from being bland, to turning it into something beautiful, turning it into something where people can actually live, and you're actually making money from it. So that evolution of something from essentially nothing, that's something I really enjoy.
Absolutely. I mean, that could be articulated in one to be my life as well. I love to create. I do like making something out of nothing and building it up and that sort of thing. But so I was going to ask you, as well, say, what would most people be surprised to learn about you? You know, obviously people, I think from when I've seen you, I just see this tenacious woman who is driven, a business person. I think from a mile away, you can tell, like, okay, this person's doing well and that sort of thing. So sometimes people might have assumptions, but what would most people be surprised to learn about you?
I am quite quiet, if I'm honest.
You quiet?
I am.
I don't believe that. I'm surprised.
I am. I do.
Okay.
I'm very comfortable in my own space.
Right. Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I love to network. I love to meet people. But a lot of the times I'm quite comfortable just being me, you know, in my own space. I also love languages as well. I don't speak many languages, but I love to learn. I love to understand people's cultures and, you know, just get to understand people on a deeper level than just the basics, you know? So yeah, I'm very passionate about relationship building and actually connecting with people.
Yeah, There you go. I'm sure the viewers and even your audience will be glad to learn that about you, because I think sometimes somebody will say one thing that will completely change your view of them because you don't know. And I was saying on this platform, particularly this podcast, that's one of the things that I aim to do, you know, to get behind the person behind the work and the work. Of course, we speak about the work as well, but the passion. Why do you do what you do? And I think you've articulated that perfectly today. It's definitely going to go towards inspiring somebody out there, as well as educating the people that already know you. I'm sure they will have learned a little bit more about you that they didn't know, you know, before, and that sort of thing. So I want to say, Sanchia, thank you so much, right, for gracing us with your time and coming, you know, here, the LiT studio. We've had a few technical issues, guys, I'll be honest. But such is life, and we've carried on. I think it's been an absolutely brilliant podcast, and that's just what generally happens when inspiration you know, is taking over. The devil is a liar. He tries to come in to intervene, but yeah, it hasn't worked today because we've managed to get this done. Before I ask you, you know, to perhaps tell us a little bit about where people can find you and that sort of thing, is there anything you'd like to add in closing, you know, finally, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, one thing I usually, one thing I kind of stand by, you know, is that success, it's going from failure to failure with enthusiasm. Wow. That's what success is. It's keeping the hope. Yeah. It's just staying consistent and just understanding that it's a part of the journey. Failure, setbacks, disheartenment, it's all part of the journey. That's, you know? Brilliant. But if you keep going, if you just keep going, you know at some point you will be successful. It has to happen.
Why do I feel like you're speaking to me right now? You're preaching to me right now. And that's a quotable, you know, going from, so what did you say again?
Success is going from failure to failure with
enthusiasm. That is a quotable right now. And I'm saying I'll be capturing all of these little moments and putting them up, because that's just such a brilliant saying. That's something that I haven't heard before, but I love it, you know, and I'm actually going to take heed of it, because you're right. It is hard in the hustle and bustle. Life is hard in general. So when you're trying to build something, it even gets harder. Because even when you try and do the simplest things, sometimes things just don't go according to plan. Even after you've planned meticulously, right? So for me, the way I am is that when I've done my plan, I've done everything, and things go wrong, I can't stand it, because I'm like, but I've planned. But I've planned. What do you mean something has changed? But that's something that I've learned about life, is that it throws you curveballs. There'll be times, no wonder you need fail safes. You really, like in life in general, especially in business, you just need to do contingency plans. Now I understand the saying, rainy day fund. I now get it. I never used to get it before. Like, what? What do I need it money for? Because certain things happen sometimes, and you have to be prepared for them. Part of being in business, part of doing certain things is being prepared for unforeseen, you know, circumstances and that sort of thing, something to cover you, you know. But yeah, absolutely. Right. So we've come to the end of the podcast, even though I could go another hour speaking to you, because the conversation is just so brilliant. Where can people find you in terms of socials and that sort of thing? Or have you got a website or...
Mainly Instagram. So you can send me a DM there and follow there. So it's Sanchia. That's SANCHIA _ Miller, MILLER _
That's brilliant. And is that the same place if they want to reach out? In
you can reach out there. Reach out via email, which is sanchia@hmoportfolio.com.
Absolutely. Sanchia, once again, thank you so much for gracing the LiT Studios. It's been a brilliant conversation, and yeah, thank you so much, guys. It's been another episode, you know, of Let Inspiration Take Over podcast. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, and yeah, catch us in the next one. Cheers. Bye.